The day she said yes, the day she said yes, everything changed in one beautiful moment. The day she said yes, the day she said yes, my whole world shifted. The day she said yes, every prayer was lifted. I had waited and believed and trusted God completely. And then she said yes, and nothing was ever the same again. The day she said yes, oh. I had rehearsed it 100 times in the mirror, every word planned, every gesture practiced, every possible response prepared for. But when the moment finally arrived, every rehearsal disappeared, and it was just me and her. And the most important question of my life, my hands were not steady, my voice was not perfect. Everything I had practiced left me the moment I needed it most, and all that remained was the truest, most unpolished, most honest version of what I felt. And I gave her that imperfect and real, and she received it with the most beautiful smile I had ever seen on any face in my entire life. I had been through enough to know what this meant. I had loved wrong and been hurt deeply and healed slowly and grown genuinely and waited patiently. So when she said yes, I was not just a man receiving a good answer. I was a man who had done the work to deserve this moment. The day she said yes, my whole world shifted. The day she said yes, oh, every prayer was lifted. I had waited and believed and trusted God completely, hey. And then she said yes, and nothing was ever the same again. The day she said yes, oh. I called my mother before I told anyone else. She answered on the second ring the way she always does. And when I told her, she went quiet for just a moment. And then she said, God is faithful, son, God is faithful. And she cried, and I cried, and we stayed on the phone for a long time, neither of us needing to say anything else, because God is faithful. I called my father, who does not cry, who has never cried in front of me in my entire life, and he cleared his throat 3 times the way he does when he is feeling more than he will admit. And he said, you chose well, son. And I understood that from my father. Those 3 words were everything. This was not just a love story, this was a testimony of what happens when a man heals himself before he chooses. When a man trusts God with his timing, when a man does not settle for what is available but waits for what is right. When a man lets God lead him to the one he designed specifically for his specific life. The day she said yes, my whole world shifted. The day she said yes, every prayer was lifted. I had waited and believed and trusted God completely. And then she said yes, and nothing was ever the same again. The day she said yes, oh. I want to tell you about the moment itself, not the rehearsed version, the real one. We were not at a fancy restaurant. We were not in a grand location with a photographer hidden and friends watching from a distance. We were in an ordinary place doing an ordinary thing. And I stopped And I looked at her, really looked at her, the way you look at someone when you have moved past trying to impress them and arrived at simply seeing them. And I said, I have been through enough to know what real looks like, and you are the realest thing that has ever walked into my life. And I do not want to spend another day building a future that does not have you standing in it. And she looked at me the way she looks at me when she's not performing anything, when she is just her, completely and quietly her. And she said yes, without hesitation, without conditions, without anything but the word itself. And that one word, yes, was the answer to every prayer I had prayed in every dark season of my life, when I did not know if this moment was ever gonna come. God had been saving it for exactly that ordinary place at exactly that ordinary moment, because the most sacred things do not always happen in the grandest locations. Sometimes they happen in the most ordinary moments, with the most honest words and the most real people, and God smiling over all of it. Okuruwe no bianile, okuruwe na iwegi anwabo na mobuo. Okuruwe no bianile, oh okuruwe na iwegi anwabo na mo obogen cheya sighting again ile chinche kwara bakauge ori atapagi nam honkoma inam chere mpechim hola makam. She said yes. She said yes with her whole heart. She said yes without double mind. My father, it was the time I waited for. Through all the seasons, God was keeping me for this moment. My heart is sweet because I chose right, because I waited for the one God chose for me. I think about the version of me that almost settled for what was available instead of waiting for what was right. I think about the version of me that almost settled for what was available instead of waiting for what was right. I think about the version of me that almost settled for what was available instead of waiting for what